Good morning, Bucks. It's November 18th. It's about 25 after 8. I'm not in the building today, but I want to help you out. If you were having trouble with the assignment, breathing emergency, putting it all together. So if you're on A day, you had to do it Monday, B day Tuesday, and if you're async, you have all week to do it. So the key is when you recognize someone's having trouble breathing, you must help them out. So this PDF on first aid helps you regardless of if you know what type of breathing disorder they have. Okay, you can usually identify a breathing problem by watching and listening to the person's breathing, by asking the person how he or she feels. So for this assignment, breathing emergency, putting it all together, a good way to start is I check the scene. The scene is safe. I see someone having a breathing problem. I walk over, I introduce myself, I obtain consent. I would immediately ask if the person has any medication for their breathing emergency. If they say yes, I would offer to get that for them. If they say no, I'm calling 911. If they say yes and I'm getting the medication for them, offer to help the person take his or her medication, and I would give it 5 to 15 minutes for that medication to work. Okay. If they say no and I call 911, I'm waiting with the person regardless. I would encourage the person to sit down and lean forward, as this helps the person make breathing easier. Provide reassurance to reduce anxiety, which can also help make breathing easier. Okay, so this is where sample comes in. If the person's responsive, gather additional information by interviewing the person. So I would like to see sample in your essay, putting it all together. And perform a head-to-toe check. You can mention that you do a head-to-toe check unless you want to develop a scene where head-to-toe check takes precedent. Remember that a person having breathing problems may find it difficult to talk. Okay, try to phrase your questions as yes or no, so the person could nod or shake his or her head in response of making the effort to speak. You may also be able to ask bystanders what they know about the person's condition. Be prepared to give CPR and use the AD if the person becomes unresponsive and you are trained in these skills. So, we want to use this first aid on somebody who is suffering from a breathing disorder and are in respiratory distress, regardless of what we know. The key is to go through sample. Okay, so sample. After we recognize the signs and symptoms, we ask them about medication. We can ask them what happened. That's E. So sample is more of a guideline than a set of rules. So you want to include that. That's in the next PDF and video. So you can watch this video to review it. You could also use the reference card. I'm sorry, that's the reference card. That's the video. So let me digress. In this PDF, it goes over sample. So while we're waiting to make sure the medication works, or we're waiting for EMS, we should go and interview the person. Are there any other signs or symptoms? Are you allergic to anything? Are there any other medications you're on? Pertinent medical history that's prior and relevant. Prior and important. Relevant is a good synonym for pertinent. We don't need to know if they had their appendix out 20 years ago. What did you last eat or drink? What happened? So these are things you could go through. Now for the essay, you could do a head-to-toe check. You don't have to go through every detail, and provide care for any other conditions. So you can watch this video if it will help. And then there's the assignment. Okay, so when you go into the assignment, you have to answer these questions. How would you help a conscious, responsive adult suffering from respiratory distress? You're not caring for CPR. You're not caring for a bleeding flesh wound. You're caring for respiratory distress according to that first PDF, regardless of what you think's wrong with them. Imagine you check the scene and you are in a safe place. How will you apply first aid and sample for respiratory distress? That's the big overriding question. In doing so, imagine you discover one of the respiratory disorders. How will you help? So If you're familiar with how to care for somebody with asthma, you can do that. Anaphylaxis shock, you can do that. Otherwise, you would just stick to that first PDF and sample, and you'll get an A. So when you click on My Documents, um, it will open up. Make sure you read all the directions. Okay, that's the question. And then there's further directions covering the rubric. Do not write in the second person. You can use I. Okay, you can write in the third person. You can number or bullet the steps, but you still have to write in full sentence. You can type in a paragraph or write a narrative. If you're not comfortable with typing and you have time at home, you can record an appropriate video or audio in which you act this out or tell me how you would do it. I believe the essay is easier, but so this is how I'm going to grade it. If you type it up, conventions, all sentences type with proper grammar, even if you list it. The key thing is make sure use the tools spelling and grammar check to make sure everything's spelled correctly. Now, so we're using lesson 3A and 3B as a guideline. You should check the scene, call, and you need to consent and care and consent. Including sample, there's about 15 to 20 steps you need to do, including that providing first aid. So keep it simple. The focus, you must imagine respiratory disorder as covered in this unit. So again, you're not caring for anything else except a respiratory disorder. So again, to start out, I check the scene. I scene is safe. I see someone with breathing issues. I approach them, I obtain consent, and then tell me how you're going to care, tell me how you're going to use sample. All right, hope this helps. Have a good day.